The day Aaliya Rahman buried her father, the sky stayed clear, almost cruelly blue. No thunder, no rain, nothing to match the weight sitting in her chest. Men in black suits whispered about markets and assets near the grave, their condolences polished and hollow. Someone squeezed her shoulder and murmured, "You're very strong." Aaliya didn't feel strong. She felt inherited. Her father, Hamid Rahman, had been called a visionary, a self-made tycoon, a nation builder. Billboards still carried his face, smiling, confident, above slogans about progress and development. To the world, he was a legend. To Aaliya, he was a distant man who smelled of leather and power, who spoke gently at home and ruthlessly everywhere else. A week after the funeral, the lawyers arrived. They laid the empire before her like a map of conquered land, housing societies, resorts, factories, vast stretches of land bought cheap and sold dear. The numbers were dizzying. She signed papers with a steady hand, telling herself this was just responsibility, not complicity. She was only continuing what already existed. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's signature, bold, decisive, at the bottom of documents she had never read before. It was during her first board visit to the northern lands that the past finally spoke. They told her it would be a short inspection. A private helicopter dropped her near a fenced valley marked for future development. The air smelled of pine and cold earth. As she walked, a group of locals stood at a distance, silent, watching. One man stepped forward. He was not dressed like the others. His clothes were simple, worn, and his eyes held a quiet fury sharpened by patience. He introduced himself as Saeed, an indigenous rights activist from the valley. "You walk on our graves," he said calmly. Aaliya stiffened. Her security moved, but she raised a hand. "I'm here to review property," she replied, rehearsed and professional. Saeed shook his head. This was never property. This was home. He spoke without shouting, without begging. He told her about families forced to leave overnight, about papers signed in languages they couldn't read, about elders who died believing the land would return to them after promises were broken. He pointed to a hill and said his mother was buried there, now labeled as Lot 47B. Aaliya felt something crack inside her, thin as glass. "These deals were legal," she said, though the words tasted false. "Legal," Saeed repeated softly, "and still stolen." Before leaving, he handed her a folder, photocopies, testimonies, faded photographs of homes that no longer existed. "You have a choice your father never took. Fight the past or repeat it." For days, she avoided opening the folder. Board members praised her leadership. Media outlets called her the daughter who would take the empire further. At night, she poured herself drinks she didn't finish and stared at her reflection, trying to see where her father ended and she began. When she finally opened the folder, she didn't cry, she went numb. Every document confirmed what she already feared. The empire was not just built on ambition, it was built on erasure. She called Saeed again. They met again, this time without security. He didn't thank her for coming. He didn't soften his words. He showed her villages now scattered, people working as laborers on land that once fed them. This isn't about charity, it's about return. Restitution. The word followed her home like a shadow. When she presented the idea to the board, returning land, compensating families, canceling future developments, they stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. "This will destroy shareholder confidence. You'll be dismantling your own inheritance. Your father would never." "I'm not my father," she said quietly. The consequences came fast. Investors pulled out. Friends stopped calling. Magazine covers changed from "rising heiress" to "naive daughter destroys legacy." Relatives accused her of betrayal. Someone leaked stories questioning her mental stability. Each loss felt like a small death. She sold properties to fund compensation. She signed land back over to communities whose names had been erased from maps. She stood before elders who did not smile, who did not forgive easily, and accepted their anger without defense. One evening, after handing over the final documents for the valley, she sat alone on the same hill Saeed had shown her months ago. The wind was sharp. Below, families were rebuilding, not grand houses, just homes. Saeed sat a short distance away. "You lost everything," he said. She shook her head. "I lost what wasn't mine." Her clothes were simpler now, her name no longer opened doors, but for the first time when she looked at her hands, they felt clean. The sadness didn't leave her. It stayed, quiet, heavy, but honest. She mourned the father she wished she had, the life she could have lived untouched by truth. Yet within that grief something steadier grew.